Good
Hello,
morning,
hello.
Stephen.
Good morning. Can't hear you, Stephen. You're muted. I think you're muted, Stephen.
There we go. Double
Yes.
double muted. Good morning, good evening.
Good day.
Bonsoir.
Ça va?
Ouais, super.
All good?
J'ai la pêche.
Nice.
Mais pas vraiment, c'est presque hiver.
Où as-tu appris le français?
Comment?
Where did you learn French?
Français, j'ai pris en France,
Oh yeah, that's why you lived here.
ouais, à la ville de Metz. Metz ou Metz et Toulouse. C'était quelques années pour faire des études dans les
Good
grandes
thing,
écoles.
good thing you didn't get the Toulouse accent.
Je suis toulousain.
Yes, I am from Toulouse actually, or very close. But I lost
Really?
all my, yeah, I'm from Castres, which is like 60
Oh,
kilometers east of Toulouse.
all
I,
right.
I studied 2 years in Toulouse.
Yeah, 2 years in Toulouse. Oh, was it really? Okay. How cool.
Yep.
Wait, which school in Toulouse?
It was my prep school, Pierre
Okay.
de Fermat. It's
Le
very
prépa.
central. Yes, but
Oh,
I studied too much and I didn't enjoy the city as much as I could have.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yep.
imagine. That's what I hear. I never did the French prépa, but I hear that it's brutal.
Yeah, it's like you have to work really hard for 2 years and then you can just do nothing for the next 3 years. It's I can
Yeah.
it feels really unbalanced. But
Yeah. See,
yep.
so that's what I did. I came in just after that and got to do then all the French
Yeah,
students they're just ready to party. Nice.
that's very smart.
hmm
Benji, are you with us?
A bit.
Okay. Well, we can get started. We can go around the room and I'll introduce ourselves for the recording. I'm Alex. I'm Alex. I'm here as an independent.
I think I'm next. I'm Martin from Apollo.
Hey everyone, I'm Kelvin from Apollo.
Hello, I'm Steven of Netflix.
Hey, folks, I'm Benji. I am here now. Hello.
Looking at the agenda today, we have I think it was Martin had something on it. 1 second, I've closed it for some reason.
Yeah, it's a very small item that came in my mailbox this afternoon. I was like, let's bring this to the working group.
Say
Okay.
number 63.
Yep. Just in time for Halloween.
Make nano the default.
We're also going to look at the results of the poll and then figure out what our next action items are now that we have syntax lockdown. Hopefully we still have syntax lockdown by the end of this meeting. We'll see. Let me check the poll. I don't think it's changed recently, but let me look again. Yeah, so the results of the poll that were taken on Discord are 7 for the question mark version, 3 for the asterisk version, and 1 for the bang version. So even if we did rank choice, the question mark would still come out ahead. So the question mark version of the syntax is going to be a winner. I put up a PR with the parsing changes for the for GraphQL.js for the question mark version of the thing. Benji, you had a chance to look at them, right?
I've had a quick look over the parser changes. Yeah.
Cool. I saw what you meant about the printer being more difficult, but I'll look at that again after the meeting. Do you think there's anything in there that's going to make using that syntax like fully impossible though?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I see it as being problematic because of the way that everything is structured. Like wrappers add syntax. If you model the new unwrapped type, the new unadorned type as being wrapped, that's going to be really interesting. So I was expecting that if you go ahead with the question mark syntax, what you would do is make the question mark itself be a wrapper and the bang be a wrapper, and then have the unadorned type represent semantic non-null, which would be the default. What you seem to be doing at the moment is effectively building on top of the semantic non-null, rather than introducing a semantically null wrapper, and then making it work, which is an interesting approach, but I think it will make certain parts of the spec and of the printer less direct. I don't think it's achievable, right? It's just code at the end of the day, but I do not think it will be elegant.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep cracking on at it. If it ends up being too difficult, I might do the thing you just said. We'll see. We'll see. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be impossible. It might just be a little complicated.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for putting in the work on the implementation, by the way. Are there spec edits live for the asterisk version or no?
Oh yeah. Presumably the spec edits I did like a year ago is probably pretty much valid. That pull request might even be closed. Let me find out.
Okay. Cool. With that, Martin, do you want to
go? Yes. So this came in today. I discovered there was an issue from 2015, actually. I can share my screen. Check. About making non-null the default, which I found funny to resurrect the day before Halloween. And basically my question here is not so much whether we want to make it the default or not, because that's something we discussed already. But more, it feels like a good opportunity to engage with the wider community. Like there are folks maybe following that issue, and in general, I feel like we discuss a lot in this group, but we should open the discussion now that we have spent some time looking at different options and see how they are received. So I don't know, it just felt like a good opportunity to either like reopen that one, or as Benji said, if I scroll down, like create a new one, notify everyone in that thread that there's a new discussion, and then we can follow up with hopefully some more folks. What do you all think?
Just to represent what I said in that comment there, I think the case of making non-null, as in strict non-null, the default is closed, and I don't think we should reopen and relitigate such things. However, the semantic non-null is a new thing. So we could discuss whether that should now be the default. I personally am of the opinion that the nullable should remain the default for GraphQL, but I think it would be valid to open the discussion.
Do they mean something other than by default? Do they mean something? I haven't read this yet, but by default, do they mean something other than having it be the unadorned syntax?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that's the intent. If you look at the issue, it's talking about type-safe language from 2015, and the main one mentioned in the issue is Scala. And by default, if you have an unadorned type in Scala, it's null. So I think that's exactly the case.
Got it. Cool.
How does that align with the syntax poll winner?
And I didn't want to open the discussion. I mean, my point was really about the process more than the actual underlying discussion. It's about like, how can we, and same for the poll. Like we have 12 votes, I think, total, which is good for the working group, but it feels like having 12 people decide on the future of GraphQL is maybe not enough. So it was mainly a question about process. How do we make sure that the work we do is heard by people that need to hear it?
I believe with the selected syntax, semantic non-null would be the default. Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes sense.
Yeah, but the poll comes out as having a question mark for that, correct?
The poll comes out with having a question mark for nullable.
So
Right.
semantically non-null is the unadorned, which I guess makes it default.
Yeah, Martin, I agree with what you're saying there too.
Yeah, so even if we do make this, a new issue, since it's, now semantically non-null, which is kind of, different than the traditional GraphQL non-null. Yeah, I do agree. It's worth connecting with this old conversation because it's definitely related.
I'll create an issue, and I'll do that after this meeting because I cannot do two things at the same time.
Cool. All right. No, that makes sense. Next agenda item is right. Next steps and action items. Now that we have the syntax at least locked down for now, I mean we can run a larger poll later and maybe we like partially release this and people hate it and we have to change. But I'm gonna pretend like it's locked down for now. What is next? We have a larger working group meeting, I think next week. Yes.
First Thursday of the month should be next week. I think it's the first Thursday, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Thursday, 7th. Cool. So should we bring our blog posts and hopefully our spec edits and implementation to that and see if we can move this thing forward?
I'd like to see if we are trying to go ahead with the question mark syntax, I'd like to see the spec edits and the implementation of it before we bring it to the larger working group. Anything that just adds syntax for the new thing, I think is quite straightforward. And we've already seen the full implementation in GraphQL.js with Test Suite and the full spec edits for it as well. So that already, I think, is pretty covered. But for anything that changes the existing syntax, especially things with like document level directives and things like that. I think we need to see it written up fully, or not fully, but like, you know, enough that we can all analyze it and make sure it's got the right trade-offs. Because at the moment, it's more of a pipe dream of like, hey, here's this syntax that we would prefer. This looks nicer to us, but it isn't a fully formed solution yet, I don't think.
Okay. I'm happy to do both of those. I'm gonna have some free time from Friday, so I can do both of those, unless you'd like to continue with them, Benji.
No, I'm super super busy at the moment, but yeah, that'd be awesome.
Understood.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I'll get the printer going. Is the printer the last thing you think? Unless we do a different type wrapper for unadorned types.
Yeah, if you handle it entirely in the printer, then you need to obviously think what the spec edits would be that describe how types are interpreted as well,
Yeah.
which I think will be quite challenging given that there will be a mode that controls the way in which they are interpreted. But the actual execution logic should be the same as what's currently written up if you use the existing type wrappers. And again, if you manage to write the spec in such a way where the unadorned type can be seen as having a type wrapper, then you can also leverage that spec text for the execution algorithm. But if you pivot to the other way of where adding a question mark itself is the type wrapper, then all of the spec text and the execution code will need to be revisited.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see what makes sense. I'll see what makes sense, and then I'll look at the specs, and I will try to have that done before the working group meeting on Thursday.
One thing to keep in mind, I think, is do you ever expect anyone to use this new syntax in executable documents?
Use the we were talking previously about what parameters?
Yeah, so I don't think there is no difference, in my opinion, really, between semantic non-null and strict non-null for input. Like I think we would stick with strict non-null for inputs in all positions. This may change if we add something like struct, where we need the type to be reflected on input and output, and the output type is different in significance. But I don't think we need that at the moment. So I think that the majority of GraphQL documents, queries, mutations, subscriptions, those executable documents would be using the existing syntax. There was a reason I brought that up, but I've forgotten what it is. But yeah, it's one thing to keep in mind, especially when it comes to writing the spec text where you're talking about the types in the schema and then the types in the operations that query it.
Yeah, I'll go back through our discussion and just make sure we're not locking ourselves out of anything. But I think I agree with you.
So Benji, just so I make sure I caught that correctly. Because there's no difference for inputs on semantic versus strict non-null, except maybe with structs. Are you saying we would keep this existing syntax on inputs and not change to the question mark?
I'm not saying that in the schema.
Okay.
I am saying that in the executable documents, like the queries that someone would write into graphical. So if you're typing something into graphical, it'd be no different than it would always have been. So the only places that you would ever write these types would be in the variable definitions, right?
Okay. Okay.
Is that right?
Okay. So when you're defining like an input type in your schema, we would probably still use the question mark there in a new schema world.
That is what has been voted for. I personally am still not in favor of that, but yes, that's what's being proposed.
I think that's right. Yeah, I'll double check, but I think that's correct.
I'm trying to think in executable documents, is there any case where bang ever appears there right now?
Yeah, variables. So if you do like a query foo brackets $a colon string bang
Right,
equals
of
or
course.
whatever.
Okay. I see. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
That is actually a really interesting point, though, Stephen, because when we talk about fragments as well, the unwrapped type, the type without a symbol is what we would use for the fragment type. And if we're saying that now, does that does that matter if we were to introduce a semantic nullability directive on the document when it comes to the fragment syntax? Because we wouldn't be referring to any form of its nullability. We're just saying that type. I think it's fine. I don't think it matters. I think it's fine. I hadn't thought about it before.
So for a fragment, you're saying
Yeah. So when you say ... on user,
mhm.
but when we're referring to user, the type, which happens, all types are nullable by default, but we're not saying on a nullable type here. We're just saying on this named type, and that would still be the same.
Yeah, because in a fragment, you can't put a bang in there, right? Like that's not a valid.
No, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it makes no difference there. It's just
Okay.
hadn't thought about it until you asked your question.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking through like, okay, where are other places you can technically put a bang in there? Cool.
Oh yeah. We Benji, you and I, we were talking about concatenating SDL documents. Can you talk more about when people do that? And I guess it's not something that's defined by the spec, so we don't really need to worry about it much, but it would still be nice to be able to explain to people what they should do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a shame Jordan's not here, because I think Jordan is more familiar with this practice. But yeah, some people generate their GraphQL schemas by just having a whole bunch of SDL files and then essentially concatenating them. It's one of the reasons that we don't really care which order things are defined in, and we don't care about cycles in the definitions and stuff like that. Like everything gets scanned and then everything gets put together.
Right.
If we were to add document level directives, we wouldn't be able to do this anymore, because either only the very first file could have the document level directive, and then every other one would inherit whether that existed or not, which is weird and wrong and confusing. Or we'd be introducing document level directives in the middle of the concatenated thing, which would be weird and wrong and broken and wouldn't pass, or various other problems. So the solution there would be basically, sorry, anyone who simply does cat, *.graphql into schema.graphql, that ain't going to work anymore. But it should be relatively simple to support. Essentially, all you do is you pass every single individual file. You effectively build the schema from that, and then you write the result of that out. So each one of those files will be passed depending on its own whether or not it has the document level directive, and then the result would just have to have that document level directive if any single one of them did, and then it can just be written out. So it's effectively like an AST transform at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you know if it's mostly being done by people generating SDL?
This would be by people who are writing SDL by hand, I think, primarily.
Okay.
So it's quite common for like we use Java for our GraphQL servers, and they do this pretty commonly.
Got it.
The server definitions.
But tooling to do the concatenation instead, like if we built a GraphQL cat instead, for example, that would do the same job. It's just an extra bit of tooling that would be required.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even now, the individual GraphQL files, they parse on their own, but they're not a valid schema on their own. They're not a complete document because like they don't have, you know, like maybe they don't have a query type or mutation type, for example.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because if each file is being parsed on its own, we're fine with that. It's just the concatenation. Stefan, you're in agreement that this would be kind of an easy fix. It sounds like this is something y'all are doing at Netflix.
Yeah, this is a lot of our GraphQL server subgraphs have like multiple schema files.
Got it. And you think it would be this is an easy fix. This isn't
I think
hugely
so. Yeah,
disruptive.
like as long as it can, as long as each one can still parse on its own, and then, but then they don't have to be valid on their own. So, but I think that that should work if we have this kind of a separation between like what is able to be parsed and then what validates as a valid document.
The other option is we introduce a end semantic nullability document directive. Throw that at the bottom. It'd be a mess.
You couldn't do that. It would be ambiguous with scalar. It would be like applying a directive to, if you had a scalar definition at the end of the document, you wouldn't know whether that directive applied to the document or to the scalar that you just previously defined.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because it's on it gets treated like it follows the
Yeah.
okay. Interesting. Okay. Something to think about. I'm gonna write that down.
Like another kind of similar case right now is type schema has to exist for the for the whole document, or if it exists, there's only one of them. And right now, if you have a multi-page schema, multi-file schema, that's only going to be on one of them. That's maybe kind of a similar situation.
What's this, Benji?
So just talking about the new concatenation tool, I've shared a link to astexplorer.net, which is a really nice way of just quickly exploring ASTs. You can put it into GraphQL mode and then type query with the A int field. And that will show you what the shape of a document is once it's passed, certainly by GraphQL.js. And essentially, the document level directives, I think, will be interpreted during the parsing. So they will change the AST that comes out. So the AST itself would still represent whether it's a semantic non-null or a strict non-null or a default name type. So then all we would need to do is just take the definitions from each of the individually parsed files and literally concatenate that array. So it becomes from text concatenation to list concatenation, and that's it. It's a really simple thing. There's no like validation, just as Stephen says, it's just take the pass result as an AST and concatenate. It's very straightforward.
Okay. Cool. No, that's good to hear. All right. Any other action items before the next working group meeting?
The only other thing is, what do we want to do about these blog posts? Do we want to leave them on ice whilst we figure out the rest of this stuff, or do we want to soften the wording a little around what it is exactly that we're doing?
Back to, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was gonna ask soften in what regard?
Honestly, I don't remember exactly what they say, but if they're talking about the syntax that we're choosing, I think that's still it would be premature to say that we're going ahead with the question mark syntax before we have an actual like proof of concept implementation of it.
Maybe just as a kind of an update, like this is where we're currently at provisionally.
Yeah. Where you said, Martin?
Have we ever made a blog post on graphql.org about nullability? I don't think we have, do we?
Not that I know of. Benji and I each have blog posts written though. They're like drafts.
I wouldn't mind like a blog post like Steven said, explaining the status where we are doesn't have to be the final thing. I think I think if we do 2 or 3 blog posts about nullability, it's not an issue. We're missing blog posts more than we have too many.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them back to back, but we definitely want more content. So posting more than once about nullability is perfectly fine. And I think saying that this conversation is undergoing, and if you're interested in it, come get involved, I think is absolutely fine and great. And we should try and get that out. So really, I guess this is a question for you, Alex, is how do we need to edit your blog post before we post it out, do you think? Or is it fairly good to go? I don't remember what it says. It's been a while since I read it last, sorry.
I'll have to look at it again as well. The original impetus for us writing the blog post was, I think Lee wanted to better understand how we were going to explain these features to our users. So I think both of our blog posts were written with that in mind. If it's more of an update, I'll probably have to change a couple of things.
Yeah, I think it may be as well that we were targeting slightly different audiences with them as well. Like maybe yours was more front end and mine was more back end or something. I don't remember the specifics though.
I think yours was more like if you are a client, if you're writing a client and you need to understand the spec deeply, this is all the information you need. And mine was more like
yeah.
using a client, then this is what you need to know.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So for the next thing, I will update the blog post to be more of like an update from the working group, spec edits, finish the implementation. Anything else?
That's
All
quite
right.
the list already. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you got enough to do.
I think it's some solid next steps.
Yeah. Okay.
Solid list.
Yeah. And thank you once again, Alex, for pushing us along here.
Yeah.
This is-
It'd be great to get this out one day, you know? All right.
I'd definitely
Cool.
love to have it out next year on GraphQL's 10-year anniversary.
Totally.
Oh.
That'd be sick.
Mm-hmm. It'd be a good,
Awesome.
good time for GraphQL 2.0. Just kidding.
3.0.
Kind of.
Anything else we need to talk about? All right, I can call it. Thank you all for coming. This was very helpful. Appreciate it. Take care. Good rest of your weeks. Later.
See you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alex. Bye.
Thanks.